Hello? My name is Alexander. I live in Ukraine, 16 miles from the front line, and I will tell you about the main military news from Ukraine for January 13th. Russia attacked Ukraine today with missiles and UAVs. Russia spent $239 million on the attack on Ukraine. Air Defense Forces destroyed 8 enemy cruise missiles this morning. Ukrainian Air Force, namely 7X-101.X555.X55 cruise missiles, 1 X-59 guided missile, also launched in Ukraine, 7 S-300.S-400 air defense systems, 3 Shahed 136.131 UAVs, 6 X-47M.2 Kinzhal aerial ballistic missiles, 6 X-22 Storm cruise missiles, 6 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, 2 X-31P guided missiles. The Air Force reports that more than 20 of all these air attack weapons did not reach their targets due to active countermeasures by electronic warfare. UPD, the report on the attack on January 13th, 24 mistakenly listed Iskander-M missiles from Crimea. Russians are trying to create a naval base in Ochamchiri on the occupied territory of Georgia. Budanov in an interview with Le Monde. We regularly attack the enemy's navy and port facilities, so the Russians had to hastily move everything to the southeast. Russians' goal now is not a major offensive, but exhaustion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Malyar. Their goal now is to exhaust us as much as possible, so that we could not create stocks of ammunition, could not prepare equipment, and were morally broken. They are acting in such a way that we do not have time to recover, the former Deputy Defense Minister wrote. At the same time, the Russians themselves are saving their personnel by using the tactics of small group assaults, which require a lot of shells. At the same time, the Russian Federation has begun forming new forces. According to Malyar, this is how the Russians are preparing for the next stage of hostilities. Ukraine is and will remain a priority for France. French foreign ministers sojourn at a meeting with Kuleba. They discussed further supplies of systems and missiles to protect Ukrainian skies, including drones. France will help Ukraine produce weapons on its own. France will support not just integration into the EU, but the observance of specific deadlines on this path. Ministers honored the memory of Ukrainians who have fallen on the battlefield. These women and men are defending much more than their country, the security of the whole of Europe, our values. Cluster munitions provided by the US to Ukraine have partially lost their effectiveness on the battlefield. The New York Times. Initially, in September, we were able to strike large Russian groups, but now they are attacking in much smaller units. A platoon commander who fought near Bakhmut told the newspaper. In addition, the Russian military has made their trenches even deeper, further complicating the task. Putin's slogan that he allegedly supports Russian speakers is multiplied by 0. They killed most Russian speakers because they destroyed the eastern cities, Zelensky said. Russia is afraid of F-16s, so missile strikes will be even more extensive, especially on airfields. Estonian intelligence chief Kiviselg. More statements. Russians have seriously damaged airfields, energy facilities, port and railroad infrastructure, weapons and ammunition depots, military training facilities and defense industry enterprises in Ukraine. The attacks will intensify with the onset of cold weather. Russia's goal at the front is Avdiivka, and the missile attacks are aimed at depleting the air defense. Russia fires 10,000 shells a day at Ukraine, Ukraine 2,000. Republicans will have a lot to pay for if they don't approve aid to Ukraine. Biden while speaking to reporters. U.S. strikes again at Houthi targets in Yemen. U.S. Department of Defense. Arab media report that strong explosions were heard in the Yemeni capital Sana'a and the city of Hodeidah. The Pentagon clarified that the target was a radar station. The strike was carried out by Tomahawk cruise missiles and is a continuation of previous attacks aimed at weakening the Houthis' ability to attack maritime vessels. Biden has warned of further strikes if the attacks on cargo ships in the Red Sea do not stop. The White House is currently considering adding the Houthis to the list of foreign terrorist organizations. Houthi naval base on the outskirts of the port city of Hodeidah under air attack Al Arabiya. The video shows satellite images of warehouses in Yemen that were used for military purposes before and after the bombing. There were 89 combat engagements over the last day, the General Staff. In particular, the enemy's assault activity is observed in the following areas. Mariinsky 26 attacks of the F*Kurs were repelled. Avdiivka 21 attacks. Kupiansk 9 attacks. Zaporizhia 8 attacks. Black Small Square Lymansky 6 attacks. Bakhmut 5 attacks. Shakhtarsk 4 attacks. Our aviation struck 21 areas of concentration of personnel, weapons and military equipment, as well as 4 enemy air defense systems. And the missile troops struck 6 areas of the armed forces, a command post, an artillery unit, 2 air defense units, an ammunition depot and an enemy radar. The occupiers are likely to advance in Donetsk region. Some experts note that after the destruction of Mariinka, Russian troops may launch an offensive on Kurakov. Given their tactics in the area of Bakhmut, it is possible that Vuhledar could also be the next target. The situation in Novomykhailivka as of today. The enemy is conducting air strikes on the village, turning the basement into a grave. The soldiers from the 79th Air Assault Brigade are holding the enemy's pressure with all their might, but the Russians are gradually taking the village into a semi-ring. At the moment, it is very difficult and risky to leave or enter the village. That was all the main military news from Ukraine. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest military news from Ukraine. Goodbye.